Alright, so as mentioned in the project requirements, we have this Next.js project. In this Next.js project, we have our app router. We have in this TRPC folder the management of the TRPC router, Auth0 for authentication, and Supabase for persistence. Let's look at each part step by step. So Auth0, this is the setup for Auth0. This creates this Auth0 client, and then in the middleware.ts, it handles all the incoming HTTP requests and passes them through the Auth0 client. So what this does, it handles the session cookie, checks whether the user is logged in or logged out, and then we have implemented a login button which directly routes the user to /auth/login. And of course, all this has been configured in the app that we have created here in Auth0. So here we have managed all the login URLs, the callback URLs, and the logout URLs. So that has been done here. Next, we have our TRPC routing. This is done for the calling the Gemini API for text as well as image generation. So the main file is this one, where we have created 3 procedures. The first procedure is for the text prompts. Second procedure is to title the chats. So what we're doing here is so that we can name the chats appropriately based on the first message for a given chat. We are sending that to Gemini and asking for an appropriate title, and then we are naming the chat based on that title. Then we have our generate image, which uses a different model, which is the image generation one, while the other ones just use Gemini 2.0 Flash. These are just files for the setup, the initialization of the TRPC. Then these are basically manage some hydration and server-side routing configuration. And this is also a client file which uses the client directive, and it sets up this provider which is going to wrap around the whole application in layout.tsx. Okay, so we have this provider, TRPC provider, which wraps around the whole application. Next, we have our Supabase. This is the just the setup of Supabase. Our application is mainly implemented in this file, the chatgpt mobile. This is the main container where all the logic has been implemented. So as we can see, these are the Gemini mutations. We have certain functions here, certain hooks we have to manage. This is the one to fetch the data from for the chats, and this is the hook to fetch the messages for a given chat. So we have managed here fetching messages and setting messages in our Supabase database. And then the various flows, of course, the image generation flow, we have the text generation flow, etc. Yeah, so this is basically the implementation of the sidebar, the new chat button, etc. So at the top here we import this chat client, which is this one. So here we manage certain user interactions and the different flows as well. Okay, let us discuss how our table is structured in Supabase. So we have 2 tables actually. One is chats and the other is messages. As the name suggests, chats store all the chats. Basically, it has the chat ID of the chat, the user ID from which the chat was created, and this is basically the Auth0 profile that we have taken from title and when it was created. Then in the messages, we have the same chat ID from which the message has been written, the user ID, the content. So if it is a text, now this image which is written here, it is not actually taken from here, but instead we have this image base 64 where the image is stored. When it was created, the role tells us whether the message was sent by the assistant or the user. And is image prompt is a boolean value that helps us handle some logic regarding whether the user sent the prompt, whether he asked for image generation or text generation. So this is basically the table editor, and I used the SQL editor to create this table, and this was very simple. I asked ChatGPT through Cursor, right? Through Cursor, I asked it to create this table for me, and it made the most appropriate schema that was for our application.